Welcome into Patriots Today. Harrison Graham from Chat Sports with you. Have the Monnesota Vikings officially placed a trade to the New England Patriots for the number 3 overall pick? We're going to dive into that coming up here in just a moment. But speaking of those fraudulent Vikings, we got a like battle with them. Their last video did 432 likes. We got to top that on today's show. Hit the like button if you think the Patriots are the better franchise than the Vikings. We all know that's the case. So like this video today. All right, Rolly, what do we make of this? And I'll kind of just set the scene here. This Austin F. guy has a connection in the NFL because during NFL free agency, he was getting a lot of scoops and information. Is he a reporter? No, but he knows an agent or he has a source with somebody in the NFL and not just for one team. And he put out a couple of days ago that he was told by that source that the Vikings have put an offer out there for the Patriots' 3rd overall pick, which includes 2 first-rounders. Obviously, the Vikings have 11 and 23 this year. And then he added this. He actually quote-tweeted this on that tweet and said, the Patriots have a lot of interest in Malik Neighbors, something to monitor for us Bears fans. He is a Bears fan, but he's been getting scoops on a lot of different things like I've been saying. So, Rolly, obviously we're not going to sit here and say this is Ian Rappaport or something like that, but I do think it's reasonable to think that Minnesota, after they made that trade with Houston, has at least put feelers out there, if not official trade offers with New England and perhaps the Chargers and Cardinals as well.
Yeah, even if you don't want to believe it's a credible source, which is fine, but to me it should not be a surprise that this is potentially happening. When the Minnesota Vikings made that trade with the Houston Texans to acquire pick number 23, and then they have 2 first-round picks in the first 25 picks of this draft, everyone kind of assumed that was in order to trade up with someone inside the top 5 so they can draft their next quarterback, especially after Kirk Cousins left them in free agency to go to Atlanta. There's rumors of them having Drake Maye as their top priority, but they also like J.J. McCarthy as well, according to some rumors out there. So they have a lot of options now, whether it's trade up to number 3 with New England Patriots for potentially Drake Maye, or if New England wants to stay put and draft a QB at pick 3, well, the Vikings could still trade up into the top 5, whether it be with the Chargers or the Cardinals, and take J.J. McCarthy, the quarterback out of Michigan. And to go and tie this back to New England, I think that this trade probably looks like this. You know, that report was there's including 2 first-round picks. Well, that's obviously minimum, and that's the bare minimum that needs to happen for New England to even pick up the phone. I think this is the most likely trade offer. We've talked about it on the show in the past, but I wanted to show it on screen. I think it would be pick 11 that Minnesota is their own pick, the one they just acquired at 23 from Houston, and their next year first-round pick in exchange for the 3rd overall selection. I feel like that is the base minimum that Elliott Wolf would have to take in for me to even think of, like, all right, I guess we could do this.
Yeah, I mean, I could see this being the offer. Maybe it's 11-23 in 2 seconds. I wouldn't take that if I was New England. This is a pretty decent offer. Again, though, if you're New England and you're set on getting a quarterback, you're only considering moving down if you're getting an absolute haul. Do you consider this an absolute haul? I think it's a good offer. I think part of it too, Rolly, if you're New England, is at least a small part of the equation is projecting where you think the Vikings will be next year. Like, if you think they're a playoff team next year, which I don't necessarily, but if you think they are, well, is 11-23 and then next year's 22nd pick, is that enough to move off of 3? It's not a bad offer by any means, but I think that comes into the equation when these teams make these draft trades of like, okay, if we're getting future ones, where do we think those are going to end up? Now, I don't think the Cardinals, when they traded with Houston last year, expected the Texans to be a playoff team. So they certainly thought that pick was going to be higher. But I do think that comes into the equation. We'll ask you guys this. Would you make this trade right now, 11-23 in next year's first for number 3 overall? Type A for accept or D for decline. Rolly, I know you've held pretty firm here. You would probably decline that offer.
Yeah, I'm staying put at 3. And I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how many different ways I could come on this show and kind of like say it differently, that the New England Patriots should a quarterback at number 3. It's because the number one part in rebuilding your franchise, you have to get the quarterback position right. And yes, there is no sure thing with any of these quarterbacks. No matter what you think about Caleb Williams, Drake Maye, Jaden Daniels, J.J. McCarthy, they are not a sure thing to be a top quarterback in the NFL. So what you have to look at here is who gives me the best chance to be a competitive team in the AFC that features Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, these elite quarterbacks, Justin Herbert as well. Like, you need to compete with those guys. I call it like a quarterback's arm race almost. And one of these top 3 guys, likely either Jaden Daniels or Drake Maye, gives you a fighter's chance if they hit. So to me, it's the best way to get back to contending in the AFC and winning potentially Super Bowls is drafting either Jaden Daniels or Drake Maye, whatever one falls to you at 3, and then go try to build your roster with the rest of the draft picks.
And for those saying, well, we're too far away this year, I actually agree with that sentiment. I don't think the Patriots' mindset should be, let's go be a major contender in 2024. But we've talked about this before, Rolly. Next year's QB class doesn't appear to be as strong. So you can't just hope that a couple guys emerge next year, number one, and two, expect to be in this position to get one of those guys. Like, even if someone emerges next year, are you going to be picking there? I guess maybe, but again, there's no guarantee. What is guaranteed right now, Rolly, is that one of Drake Maye or Jaden Daniels will be on the board when you're selecting. There is a 100% chance that that is the case. So unless you just don't like the one that is there, and I suppose that's possible, there seems to be mixed reviews on some of the quarterbacks after Caleb Williams, but to me, I've gone back and forth on it, but even with the Daniels thing, you almost just have to take him, I feel like, unless you're just really sour on him as a prospect for whatever reason.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. You got to take your guy and try to get over to the quarterback department. I'm just going to keep on hammering that point home. You absolutely need to take a quarterback. But if Elliot Wolf decides to make a trade, we will have you covered. So don't go anywhere, because whether it be a live or just a normal VOD, we will have you covered with if the Patriots make a deal and trade out of the 3rd pick. And we'll certainly have you covered if the Patriots stay with that 3rd overall selection and draft a quarterback. Now I do want to talk about this, though, because it seems like Drake Maye continues to be that guy that is most likely to be the pick at number 3 for New England. Why is that? Well, Albert Breer came out and said I think it was either yesterday or earlier today.
In the last 24 hours.
That the Commanders, at least as of right now, are quote-unquote leaning towards Jaden Daniels, the LSU quarterback who could be there at number 3 for New England, but if the draft was tomorrow, it seems like he would be heading to Washington, which would only let the Patriots select Drake Maye, which is the guy that I want all along.
Yeah, look, I mean, I've said it. You've been pretty consistent about it as well. If Drake Maye's there at 3, I'm really not even thinking about it. Like, I'm handing him the card. I've come around to I would at least take calls if Maye and Williams are gone, and at least be open to it. I still would probably take Daniels if I was the Patriots, but if some team offered something crazy, I would at least be open to the idea of it. I even threw out the idea of, well, what if Minnesota makes you a crazy offer and they want McCarthy, and then you come back to 4 or 5 and get Daniels still, and you come out in the net positive. Obviously, that's a risk. You don't know what other teams are involved in a potential trade, but to me, it's a no-brainer. If Drake Maye's on the clock at 3, like, you know that there's 10 minutes on the clock when you pick?
Yeah.
9:52, you hand the card in. Like, it just seems obvious to me. Like, I don't know why there seems to be all these, like, random mixed reviews now. I get, like, everybody's a draft nerd now and whatnot, but, like, at worst, he's the second best QB in this draft, in my opinion.
No, yeah, I completely agree. And the part that really drives me up a wall, Harrison, is like everyone says inconsistently with his footwork and accuracy at times. Okay, cool. Some of these other quarterbacks in the NFL draft right now, guess what? They've already played 5 years of college. You're obviously going to have better footwork and accuracy when you've played 5 years of college football. Like, what are we doing here? Like, Drake Maye has been productive. He's shown the traits in 2 years as a starter at Chapel Hill. If he played another 2 years and was a 5-year starter like Jaden Daniels was, I'm sure that his footwork and accuracy would be way better than it is right now, too.
Well, I think it's also, you see it with these guys like Drake Maye that are so big, strong, physical, and athletic, is their arm talent's so supreme that, like, they don't have to have great footwork at the college level. Like, that was a big thing with Mahomes out of Tech. His footwork was a fucking joke because he could make every throw out every platform. Like, I'm not saying Maye's Mahomes, but like arm strength wise, it's not that far off. So like, yeah, he can get away with some lazy footwork sometimes. That's obviously something he'll have to work on. But like, footwork's one of the easier things to clean up when developing a quarterback in the NFL. Like, what's hard is adding crazy arm strength. Like, that's hard. Like, you either have it or you don't. Like, sure, you can lift weights and get a little stronger, but can you spin it or can you not? And he can spin it with his the best of them in this draft. Now, speaking of the best, this little combination, first of all, Patriots colors in general are the best. Second of all, this hat t-shirt combo being $20 off, that's a hell of a deal too. Chatsports.com/PatsCombo. That link is in the comments and in the description of this video. Pick one up today and be geared up for the 2024 season. We've talked about this angle as well, Rolly, but just to reiterate it, the signing of Marcus Mariota for Washington and shipping out Sam Howell, there is dots to be connected there that, well, Marcus Mariota is a similar style player and was a similar style prospect coming out to that of Jaden Daniels, a true dual threat, whereas, yes, Drake Maye and Caleb Williams, you could put them into the dual threat category, but they're clearly looking to be pass-first guys. And I think Daniels is too, but like, he's a guy where you're actually calling designed runs more than once or twice a game for. Like, if you bring in Jaden Daniels, that's a guy you run QB power with. You run some read options. Certainly in the red zone, you do those things. Obviously, that's a thing Marcus Mariota did a lot earlier in his career as well. So stylistically, he as your backup would make sense. So I do think, as of right now, Daniels being the at least favorite in Washington right now makes sense at this point in time.
No, yeah, the dots are being connected. The Commanders trade away Drake Maye's best friend and Sam Howell. There's different ways you could look at that as well if you just look at there. You could think of it in like, well, Sam Howell is his best friend, so they traded him away because they didn't want him to compete for the job. But you can also say, well, it would have been a very easy transition for Drake Maye to have his best friend in that quarterback room helping him out in Washington. So to me, that was a little bit of a wishy-washy thing where, like, I'm not looking too into that, but I am looking into the Marcus Mariota thing because, like you mentioned, stylistically, he matches up as Jaden Daniels' backup way better than Drake Maye's backup. And that, to me, makes all the sense in the world. And between Mel Kiper saying Jaden Daniels QB2, Albert Breer's report, it really does feel like Jaden Daniels is trending towards being the Washington Commanders' preference. And he might be able to run that Cliff Kingsbury offense better anyway, as he had a lot of success with Kyler Murray back in the early portion.
Oh, and I'll ask you guys this, and you guys pick a quarterback, and I'll make this final point. Type DM for Drake Maye, JD for Jaden Daniels. I'll throw this out there, too. If you're Washington, what is more contract and team friendly? A young Sam Howell with 2 years left on his contract as your backup, or Marcus Mariota for $6 million? I would say Sam Howell. So if you're moving on from that, there has to be a reason. Like, the compensation they got back was not a good enough reason to move on from, what, a 24-year-old quarterback, even if he's your backup?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It feels like that was a very calculated move for their next quarterback choice.
Yeah, and even though Sam Howell turned the ball over a shit ton in his first year as quarterback.
Dude, for 4,000 yards last year.
Yeah, he did a lot of very nice things, and he had some really good games as well. But I do want to tie it back to New England here, because if you are new here, and if you've watched throughout the video, make sure you're subscribed. But both of us here have kind of made it clear we prefer Drake Maye over Jaden Daniels, and if Maye is there at 3, they should absolutely take him. And the part that I like the most about Drake Maye is that I think he is the second youngest quarterback in this draft class, only behind J.J. McCarthy. Drake is still very young in comparison to a Jaden Daniels, a Bo Nix, a Michael Penix. Caleb Williams is kind of in that tweener range of those 5 guys that I just mentioned. Mm-hmm. But when you think about what the Patriots do if they do take Drake Maye, if you are concerned about the accuracy and footwork, that's cool. That's why you signed Jacoby Brissett to a 1-year, $8 million deal, to where if you have those 2 battle it out in training camp in August, and you make the determination that Drake Maye's footwork and accuracy is not there right now to be a starter, you can go to Jacoby Brissett for maybe half the season. And if you stink, well, then now that's when you get the second half evaluation of Drake Maye. You're not put into a spot where Drake has to play right away. If you take Jaden Daniels, he is such a polished prospect in a way because of how much experience he has. You put him out there to start right away. With Drake, it allows you the flexibility to go to Jacoby Brissett for 4 to 5 games if you feel that's necessary.
Well, and that's also my counter too, Rolly, to all these people. This roster isn't close, especially offensively, this and that. And I think there's some truth to that. Well, that's why you signed Brissett. If you don't want to put a rookie quarterback out in the fire and you're worried about breaking him because the roster isn't there yet, well, then put Jacoby Brissett out there because he's more than serviceable. It's not all about 2024, but the access to a good prospect is kind of about 2024 because you don't know where you're going to be in next year's draft, who's going to be available. Does someone emerge of the caliber of a Drake Maye or a Jaden Daniels? So I just think when we'll continue to find new angles and discuss recent reports, but when you continue to break it all down, Rolly, there's really no real logical reason, in my opinion, to not just take the quarterback at 3. You can think of different reasons why you wouldn't, but ultimately, I think there's way more reasons why you should. And at that position, if there's way more reasons why you should than you should not, then you should just pull the trigger.
Yep, couldn't agree more, and I'm going to keep on singing it until it happens. And
just
if
over
they
a month
trade
away.
out of 3, then I'm going to be in shambles. But if they do trade out of 3, we'll have you covered. So make sure you join the channel, hit that sub button, because whether it be Patriots draft rumors or free agency rumors or draft news, we will have it all. So hit that sub button.
See ya.